Platner assault claim. Syrian blasts greet Macron. Turkish NATO arms summit. And U.S. World Cup elimination. Greetings, humanity. Let's grok the news. We cover the world's headlines, but first, a deep dive into the most important story in the world today. Dateline, Augusta, Maine. Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner says his campaign is reflecting on the best path forward after a woman who once dated him accused him of sexual assault. Jenny Rassicot told Politico that nearly 5 years ago, a deeply intoxicated Platner showed up unannounced at her home and forced her to have sex despite her repeated objections and statements that she did not consent. Platner, the notorious Democratic nominee, challenging Republican Senator Susan Collins in a race that could help determine Senate control, immediately denied the allegation. In a video statement released Monday, he called any claim of non-consensual behavior categorically untrue. He added that while he stands by the inaccuracy of the reporting, he is mindful of the political reality and the impact it could inflict on the campaign. Rassicot, age 41, had previously spoken with the New York Times about Platner's behavior toward women, but had not leveled a sexual assault accusation until now. She told Politico she was reluctant to come forward earlier, but decided to speak out after weighing the stakes of the Senate race. Multiple top Democrats moved quickly to distance themselves. Senators Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, along with Representatives Ro Khanna and Ruben Gallego, withdrew their endorsements and called on Platner to leave the race. Maine Democratic leaders issued a similar demand. The accusation comes at a critical moment. Of course, the filing deadline for replacing a candidate in Maine is approaching, and any withdrawal could trigger a rapid scramble for a new nominee in what is already one of the most closely watched contests of the cycle. Platner's campaign canceled several weekend events and has gone quiet on public scheduling as it weighs its next steps. Platner has not commented beyond the video. His team has not released any additional statement on whether he intends to stay in or exit the race. The rapid erosion of tenuous support within his own party underscores the gravity of the claim in a state where personal character often weighs heavily with voters. Well, one would hope that would be everywhere. This development injects fresh uncertainty into an already competitive race. Collins, a longtime moderate Republican, has held the seat for decades. Democrats viewed Platner as a strong challenger, capable of flipping the seat. The allegations now threaten to derail that effort and could force National Party leaders to intervene in the final months before the election. Legal experts note that while the statute of limitations may limit criminal charges after 5 years, the political consequences remain immediate and severe. No formal complaint has been filed with law enforcement according to public records, which is often the case in such cases, but the political fallout continues to unfold in very real time. This observer would have you note that Grok did not seem to find in any coverage of this latest Platner scandal any mention of the deep, dark controversies previously surrounding the Democrat candidate, a socialist and a Nazi, with rumors of womanizing abuse before this. But at least he wasn't a Republican. I'm Robert Gardner, using Grok each weekday to truthfully summarize the news, well seasoned with my opinions. We review a roundup of the most critical reports in the world right after this. God with Us, the story of Jesus, blends the Gospels into one inspired narrative. Divided into daily Bible studies, this book presents the story of Jesus from his birth to his ascension. Find God with Us by Robert Gardner, that's me, at Amazon.com. Now, we grok the news with headlines from around the world. Dateline, Damascus, Syria. Explosions rocked central Damascus on the second day of French President Emmanuel Macron's landmark visit, the first by a Western leader since the fall of the Assad regime. At least 18 people were injured, including police officers, near the hotel where Macron was staying. Syrian state media said the blast appeared intended to disrupt normalization efforts. Macron continued his schedule undeterred, meeting officials as part of a high-risk push to stabilize post-Assad Syria. Dateline Ankara, Turkey. NATO leaders gathered in Turkey for a high-stakes summit with major arms deals on the table. Billions in new defense spending and anti-drone systems were unveiled as the alliance seeks to reassure President Trump while supporting Ukraine. Russian strikes hit Kyiv just ahead of these meetings, killing at least 24. Discussions also touched on potential F-35 sales to Turkey, despite Israeli objections. Dateline Tehran. Massive crowds filled Tehran's streets and later Qom for funeral processions honoring the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. His son Mojtaba's continued absence fueled speculation about succession. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi figures, the proxy armies of Iran's terror campaign, well, they were there. Iran issued new warnings on nuclear negotiations with the United States, while reports emerged of more Iranian attacks on commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Dateline Brussels. Belgium defeated the United States 4-1 to knock the co-host Americans out of the 2026 World Cup in the round of 16. Controversy swirled after FIFA lifted American striker Folarin Balogun's suspension following a reported call from President Trump to FIFA President Gianni Infantino. Belgium's federation appealed the decision, calling it an unacceptable political intervention. Well, this observer thinks it was blatantly an unreasonable suspension and is glad that Trump placed a personal call. It didn't make a difference, did it? Let the games continue. Dateline Caracas, Venezuela. The death toll from last week's devastating twin quakes climbed past 3,000, with more than 17,000 now left homeless. Rescue efforts continued as the country marked its Independence Day amid the crisis. International aid groups, including Operation Blessing, ramped up feeding programs for survivors in the hardest-hit coastal regions. Dateline Paris, France. A French appeals court prepares to rule on Marine Le Pen's embezzlement conviction, a very suspicious decision that could bar the far-right leader from the 2027 presidential race. Jordan Bardella is positioned as a potential successor if Le Pen is sidelined. The verdict is seen as pivotal for France's political future, and this observer sees the upcoming decision as pivotal for the honor of France. Do they have any left? Dateline Beijing. A former senior Chinese official was sentenced to death for accepting more than $325 million in bribes. Separately, deadly landscapes and typhoon-related floodings, killed dozens across several provinces. President Xi Jinping called for all-out efforts to combat the extreme weather events ravaging parts of the country. Dateline Seoul, South Korea. A new law targeting fake news took effect, raising concerns among journalists about potential government outreach and press freedom. The measure comes amid heightened tensions in the region and efforts by authorities to control online information flows. Dateline Kyiv, Ukraine. Russian missile and drone barrages struck residential areas of the capital, killing at least 24 people. Ukraine responded with its own large-scale drone attacks toward Moscow. The strikes occurred just days before the NATO summit, highlighting the ongoing intensity of the ongoing, never-ending, useless, completely avoidable conflict. Dateline, Memphis, Tennessee. State authorities are investigating the fatal shooting of an armed man by National Guard soldiers patrolling with local police. The victim's family demands release of body cam video. The incident occurred amid heightened security operations in the city. Dateline, Samsung headquarters in South Korea. Samsung Electronics reported an expected 1,800% jump in operating profit for the quarter, driven by soaring demand for AI chips. The strong results highlight the continued boom in artificial intelligence hardware worldwide. Dateline, New York, New York. 8 people were rescued after a seaplane made a hard landing in the East River near Manhattan. No serious injuries were reported. Investigators, of course, are examining the cause of the incident involving this small aircraft. Dateline, Newport Beach, California. Hundreds of people were arrested after chaos erupted during 4th of July celebrations. Fireworks were thrown into crowds, turning the festive event into a scene of disorder and prompting a large law enforcement response. Dateline, Dhaka, Bangladesh. Landslides triggered by heavy monsoon rains killed at least 8 Rohingya refugees in Cox's Bazar camps. Similar flooding and landslides affected parts of India and China, adding to the regional toll from extreme weather. Dateline, Kinshasa, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Ebola deaths not slacking in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They've now surpassed 500. Health workers threatened to strike over the conditions there, raising fears that the outbreak could worsen without even more international support. Dateline, Jakarta. Indonesia and India have signed a major BrahMos missile deal to strengthen their defense ties. The agreement comes amid growing regional security concerns in the Indo-Pacific. Dateline, Hong Kong. Activist Joshua Wong faces sentencing in a second national security case. The proceedings are closely watched as a test of the city's legal environment under the Chinese national security framework. And Dateline, Microsoft headquarters. Microsoft is laying off approximately 4,800 employees worldwide as the company continues its shift toward AI-driven operations and changing its work structures. Remember back when they told poor, unfortunate, unemployed workers, learn to code? Well, that did not age well. Dateline, Washington, D.C. President Trump announced plans for a new granite helipad on the White House South Lawn, financed by Sikorsky. The move is part of broader infrastructure and security upgrades at the Executive Mansion during America's 250th anniversary year. I thank you for listening. Please join me tomorrow to once again Grok the News. I'm Robert Gardner. Godspeed and God bless.